Well, in the last few minutes, the former Home Secretary has been speaking on Radio 4, first time she's spoken since she spectacularly was sacked from government last week. She said that the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda is intellectually incoherent. Let's have a listen.
That means she doesn't like it.
I'm very surprised by the statement which has been put out by Downing Street and the Prime Minister on this, because on the one hand, the bill that the Prime Minister himself has put forward makes clear that they are disapplying elements of international law to a degree. On the face of the bill, the Secretary of State cannot confirm that the bill complies with international law. So on that basis, there would be a problem given the statement made by Downing Street. Secondly,
it's not true.
I would also say that the measures that I'm proposing do not breach international law.
You say
there
it's
is
not
a
true what they're
perfectly,
saying.
if I can just finish the point because it's quite important, the measures that I've proposed do not breach international law. There is a perfectly legitimate basis in international law for justifying the measures that I've put forward.
Are you saying that they are lying when they say that the Rwandan government would not go ahead on the basis that you are recommending?
What I'm saying is that there's an intellectual incoherence.
Let's get Labour's response to this. Pat McFadden, we say good morning to him. Pat speaking on behalf of the Labour Party. He's Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Pat, you must be loving this. You must be loving all this infighting. They're so busy fighting each other, they've forgotten to fight you guys.
Well, I'm not loving it, because who wants their government to be a shambles? And they're falling apart. They're eating one another alive here, and that means things are not being done. That the country doesn't have a proper government, and I want it to have a proper government. But the only way this will change, I'm afraid, is if we get an election. Because imagine going on with 5 more years of this chaos over this, and who really believes anything else would get better if they carried on either?
Which brings us to the Rwandan agreement. I mean, if you get power, what would you do with the agreements that we have been creating with Rwanda in the first place? Would you overthrow those? Would you withdraw from them, or would you keep them?
Well, they're not working. I mean, we've sent more Home Secretaries to Rwanda than we have asylum seekers, and we've spent £140 million and probably more. They're going to bring out more figures next year, but they won't tell us at the moment. So we spent a lot of money on this, and that money could have been used to go after the criminal gangs who are organising this activity in the first place. So the scheme isn't working. This is actually not the first bill on this. This is the 3rd bill on this in 2 years, and it's likely to end up in the courts as well, because what the courts said about it a few weeks ago was you can't just declare that a country is safe. You can't just produce a piece of paper that says that. So this is not a plan that's working, but it is a plan that's costing a lot of money.
I don't know if you were able to hear that clip a moment ago when we heard Suella Braverman being pushed on whether or not she thought the government were liars, and she said no, she didn't think they were liars, she just thinks they're stupid, effectively. But it is incredibly hard to get any politician of any political colour to be completely honest about the situation. So I put it to you. The reason you are not enjoying this, you say it's because you take no pleasure in seeing an incompetent government. I say it's because you know you're going to have a real headache with this yourself when you're in power, and you may well have the same divisions within your own party. I mean, just the suggestion that you're making there about trying to tackle the criminal gangs, well, we know that the National Crime Agency have come out and said you can't do that without policies like Rwanda. This is absolutely wrought with problems, this issue.
Oh, it's a difficult issue. There's no doubt it's a difficult issue, because no country can be comfortable if you've got thousands of people arriving on your shores illegally. That's not just a question of immigration, it's a question of security too. And that's why we are so keen on international cooperation on a criminal law basis to treat this, as our party leader has said, like international terrorism. You've got to work across borders. You've got to be really tough on it. We've also got to do other things too, like tackle the huge backlog which has led to all these hotels, including in places like Wolverhampton, where my own constituency is, which is costing millions of pounds a day, and that's because the government isn't tackling the backlog. They're actually processing far fewer asylum claims per week or month than was the case when we were in power. So they've got bad at dealing with the problem and bad at stopping the problem.
Just lastly, we were speaking to Christopher Hope, our political editor, in the last 40 minutes or so, and he was saying that there were rumours in Westminster that at some point there could be a vote of no confidence in the government, or indeed there could be more letters submitted, and we could see all over again 1922 committee considering the future of our Prime Minister. I've read a statistic that if we get another Conservative Prime Minister following on from Rishi Sunak, it will be more, just in this recent period, 6 Prime Ministers in a short period for the Conservatives than have ever been in power as Labour. There's only ever been 6 Labour Prime Ministers. A shocking statistic.
Well, I'm hoping to change that statistic sometime next year, but what you're saying points out the chaos. I mean, aren't we almost fed up, more than almost, fed up with these terms, the 1922 committee, the letters going in, the whole rigmarole again, the Tory party thinking that a new leader will solve its problems. You know, I've got milk in the fridge that can last longer than some Tory ministers, and it's no way to run a country, and the only way to stop it, I'm afraid, is if people vote for change when they get the chance next year.
McFadden, thanks for your time this morning. Got to leave it there. Thank you.